Emma Chen stood in a crowd outside Buckingham Palace, her camera hanging around her neck. The summer sun shone down on London, making the day warm and pleasant. Emma was 32 years old and came from a small town in Ohio. All her life, she had saved money from her job as a nurse to visit London. Now, after 10 years of saving, she was finally here. Emma looked at the famous royal guard standing nearby. He wore the well-known red uniform and tall, black, furry hat. His face showed no emotion as he stood perfectly still. These guards were famous for never smiling, never talking, and never moving while on duty. The guard's name was James Miller. He was 25 years old and had been a royal guard for 3 years. James came from a small village outside of London. His father and grandfather had also been royal guards. James was proud to follow in their footsteps. Emma watched James with great interest. While other tourists took quick photos and moved on, she stayed and observed him. There was something about his eyes that caught her attention. Most tourists saw the guards as almost not real, like statues in uniform. But Emma saw the human behind the stiff pose. What Emma didn't know was that this day was not a normal day for James. That morning, he had received a phone call from the hospital. His mother had been in a bad car accident and was now in serious condition. James had wanted to rush to the hospital right away, but his duty as a guard came first. He couldn't leave his post for another 5 hours. Behind his still face, James's mind was filled with worry. He thought about his mother lying in a hospital bed. He remembered how she had always supported his dream to become a royal guard. She had been so proud when he got the job. Now, when she needed him most, he couldn't be there. The crowd around Emma grew larger as a tour bus arrived. People pushed to get better views and photos. Emma noticed a small change in the guard's face, a tiny muscle movement near his eye. Most people wouldn't have seen it, but Emma was trained to notice small signs of distress in her patients at the hospital. Something is wrong with him, Emma thought. She felt a strange connection to this guard she had never met. Maybe it was because she spent her life helping people in pain. She could almost feel that he was suffering behind his professional mask. A group of loud teenagers came up to the guard, making silly faces and trying to make him react. James didn't move, as his training had taught him, but Emma saw his hands grip his rifle just a little tighter. The strain was visible only to someone looking for it. Emma felt more and more drawn to this guard. Without really planning it, she stepped away from the safety of the crowd. Something inside her, the same instinct that made her a good nurse, told her that this man needed human contact. The other tourists watched in surprise as Emma moved toward the guard. This was not allowed. Everyone knew you weren't supposed to touch or disturb the royal guards. Some people started filming with their phones, expecting to catch the moment when Emma would be yelled at or arrested. But Emma wasn't thinking about rules or consequences. She only saw a person in pain who needed comfort. As she came face to face with James, their eyes met for just a second. In that brief moment, something passed between them, a human connection that went beyond words. And then, Emma did what no tourist had ever dared to do before. Emma took a deep breath and did something that shocked everyone watching. She stepped forward and wrapped her arms around James in a gentle hug. The crowd went completely silent. Some people gasped. Others quickly raised their phones to record what was happening. Everyone expected the guard to push her away or for other guards to rush over and remove her. James felt the warm hug and froze. In his 3 years as a royal guard, nothing like this had ever happened. His training told him to stay still and ignore her. Guards were not allowed to react to tourists, no matter what they did. But today was different. The warmth of human touch broke through his professional wall. For 5 long seconds, James remained perfectly still. The crowd held their breath, waiting to see what would happen next. Then something amazing happened. James slowly lowered his rifle. His arms, which had been stiff at his sides, moved up and returned Emma's hug. It was a small movement, but it broke hundreds of years of royal guard tradition. "Thank you," James whispered so only Emma could hear. "I needed that today." A security officer rushed toward them, his face showing shock and anger. "Miss, step away from the guard immediately," he shouted. Emma pulled back, surprised by both the officer's voice and the fact that James had hugged her back. James returned to his proper position, standing straight with his rifle at his side. His face went back to showing no emotion, but his eyes met Emma's for a brief moment. In that look was a message of thanks that words couldn't express. The security officer took Emma by the arm. "You'll need to come with me, miss. Touching the royal guards is strictly forbidden." Emma nodded, understanding she had broken an important rule. "I'm sorry," she said. "I just felt like he needed a hug." As the officer led Emma away, people in the crowd began to talk excitedly. Some were already posting their videos online. No one had ever seen a royal guard break character before. This was big news. In a small office inside the palace grounds, Emma sat across from a serious-looking man in a suit. His name was Mr. Thompson, head of palace security. He was not happy. "Do you understand what you've done?" Mr. Thompson asked. "These guards train for months to maintain their composure. Your actions have caused a serious breach of protocol." Emma looked down at her hands. "I'm sorry. I'm a nurse back home, and I could tell something was wrong with him. I just wanted to help." Mr. Thompson's face softened slightly. "While your intentions may have been good, we have rules for a reason. The royal guards represent hundreds of years of tradition." Meanwhile, James continued his duty, standing perfectly still. But inside, his mind was racing. He knew he would face serious consequences for breaking protocol. Guards who showed any reaction could be fined, demoted, or even removed from service. His family legacy was now at risk because he had returned a simple hug. Yet, he didn't regret it. That moment of human connection had given him strength. For the first time since hearing about his mother, he felt like he could make it through his shift. Sometimes, rules had to bend for humanity. Back in the security office, Mr. Thompson was finishing his lecture. "We'll need your contact information, and you may face a fine," he told Emma. As Emma wrote down her details, a phone on the desk rang. Mr. Thompson answered it, his expression changing as he listened. "Yes, sir. I understand. Yes, she's right here." He hung up and looked at Emma with surprise. "That was my superior," he said slowly. "It seems there's been a development. The videos of your interaction with Guard Miller have gone viral. They're all over social media, and the story has been picked up by several news outlets." Emma's eyes widened. "Is that bad?" Mr. Thompson sighed. "It's complicated. The palace will need to make a statement, and they want to speak with you." Emma sat in a large room inside Buckingham Palace. The walls were covered with paintings of kings and queens from long ago. She felt small and out of place in her simple tourist clothes. Across from her sat Lady Victoria Hamilton, the Royal Communications Director, a woman in her 50s with perfectly styled gray hair and sharp eyes. "Miss Chen," Lady Hamilton said, looking at the papers in front of her, "your hug has caused quite the situation. The video has been viewed over 2 million times in just 3 hours." Emma's stomach tightened. "I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to cause trouble." Lady Hamilton raised an eyebrow. "The question is what we do now. The palace must respond to this incident." At the same time, in a different room, James stood at attention before his commanding officer, Captain Richards. The captain's face was red with anger. "Guard Miller, do you understand what you've done?" Captain Richards asked. "For over 180 years, the Queen's Guards have maintained perfect discipline. We never react. We never break character. And you hugged a tourist." James looked straight ahead. "Yes, sir. I understand, sir." "Explain yourself, Miller," the captain demanded. James swallowed hard. "Sir, my mother was in a serious car accident this morning. She's in critical condition at St. Mary's Hospital. I received the call just before my shift." Captain Richards' face softened slightly. "Why didn't you request emergency leave?" "The surgeon said we were short-staffed today, sir. I thought I could handle it. Back in Lady Hamilton's office, Emma was surprised by a knock on the door. A young assistant entered and whispered something in Lady Hamilton's ear. The older woman's expression changed. "Miss Chen, there's something you should know about Guard Miller," Lady Hamilton said after the assistant left. "His mother is currently in critical condition at St. Mary's Hospital following a car accident this morning. He was denied emergency leave due to staffing issues." Emma's hand went to her mouth. "Oh no. That's why he seemed so troubled. I could tell something was wrong, but I had no idea it was so serious." Outside the palace, the crowd had grown even larger. News vans from major networks parked nearby. Reporters talked into cameras, telling the story of the tourist who hugged a royal guard and got hugged back. The hashtag Royal Guard Hug was trending #1 worldwide. The palace phone lines were flooded with calls. Some people complained about the guard breaking tradition, but many more expressed support for this human moment. They called it a touching display of compassion and the most heartwarming royal moment in years. In the hospital across town, a nurse turned on the TV for James's mother, Mrs. Miller. She was awake but weak after surgery. Her eyes widened as she saw her son's face on the screen. The news showed a blurry video of James hugging Emma. "That's my James," she whispered with a small smile. "Always had the biggest heart." Lady Hamilton looked at the growing social media numbers on her tablet. This story was not going away. The palace needed to make a decision. "Miss Chen, we have two options," she said. "We can issue a statement condemning both your actions and Guard Miller's response. This would maintain the dignity of tradition." Emma's heart sank. She didn't want James to get in trouble because of her. "Or," Lady Hamilton continued, surprising Emma, "we can take a different approach. People are responding very positively to this human moment. In a time when the monarchy is working to seem more connected to ordinary people, this could be useful." Emma looked confused. "What does that mean?" "It means," Lady Hamilton said with a small smile, "that I need to speak with Her Majesty, and you and Guard Miller should prepare yourselves. The world wants to know your story." As the sun began to set over London, neither Emma nor James knew that their lives were about to change in ways they never could have imagined. A simple hug was about to become much more than just a viral video. The next morning, Emma woke up in her small hotel room. Her phone was buzzing with messages from friends and family back in Ohio. Everyone had seen the video. Her simple act of kindness had become world news overnight. She turned on the TV and almost fell off the bed. Her face was on every channel. News reporters stood outside Buckingham Palace, talking about the hug that changed royal protocol. Some people called her brave. Others said she was disrespectful. But everyone was talking about her. Emma's phone rang. It was Lady Hamilton from the palace. "Miss Chen, Her Majesty has made a decision." Lady Hamilton said, "The Queen believes this moment has touched many people's hearts. She has decided to meet with both you and Guard Miller this afternoon." Emma could hardly breathe. "The Queen wants to meet me?" "Yes, a car will pick you up at noon. Wear something appropriate," Lady Hamilton said before hanging up. Across town, James sat beside his mother's hospital bed. He had been given 2 days of emergency leave after the truth about his situation came out. His mother looked small and fragile with tubes and wires connected to her, but she was awake and smiling at him. "You're famous now," she said weakly, pointing at the TV where his face appeared again. James shook his head. "I might lose my position, Mum. I broke the most important rule." His mother reached for his hand. "You showed you're human. That's never wrong." A nurse came into the room holding a clipboard. "Mr. Miller, there's someone here to see you." James expected his commanding officer. Instead, a well-dressed palace official walked in. "Guard Miller, Her Majesty wishes to meet with you and Miss Chen today at 2 o'clock, the official said. "A car is waiting to take you home so you can change into your full dress uniform." James looked at his mother with wide eyes. She smiled and nodded at him to go. At exactly noon, A black car with the royal flag stopped in front of Emma's hotel. People on the street took pictures as she nervously climbed in. She wore the nicest dress she had packed, a simple blue one she had bought specially for this trip. The car drove through London streets, finally passing through the gates of Buckingham Palace. Emma's heart beat fast as palace staff led her to a waiting room. A few minutes later, James arrived in his full dress uniform, looking nervous but handsome. "Guard Miller," Emma said, standing up. "I'm so sorry if I caused trouble for you." James gave her a small smile. "Please, call me James, and you didn't cause trouble. In fact, you helped me when I needed it most." Before they could talk more, Lady Hamilton entered the room. "Her Majesty will see you now." Emma and James walked through grand hallways with red carpets and gold decorations. They entered a beautiful room where an elderly woman sat in a simple chair. Everyone bowed as they approached the Queen of England. "So," the Queen said with a warm smile, "you're the pair who have turned my palace upside down." Emma and James stood nervously, not knowing what to say. "Guard Miller," the Queen continued, "I understand your mother is ill. How is she doing?" James was surprised by the personal question. "Better today, Your Majesty. Thank you for asking." The Queen nodded. "And Miss Chen, you're a nurse, I'm told." "Yes, Your Majesty," Emma replied, her voice shaking slightly. "Well," said the Queen, "it seems you both understand something important about duty and compassion." Guard Miller showed that behind the uniform, our guards are human. And Miss Chen showed that sometimes rules must bend for kindness. The Queen looked at Lady Hamilton. "I've made my decision. Rather than punish this moment of humanity, we will celebrate it." Emma and James exchanged confused looks. What did the Queen mean? "Lady Hamilton will explain everything," the Queen said. "But first, Guard Miller, I'm arranging for the royal doctor to visit your mother. And Miss Chen, I hope you'll extend your stay in London. There is much work to be done." As they left the Queen's presence, neither Emma nor James understood how their lives were about to change. A simple hug was becoming something much bigger than either of them could have imagined. The next day, Emma and James sat in a large meeting room at the palace. Lady Hamilton walked in with a team of people carrying folders and tablets. She had a big smile on her face. "Good morning," Lady Hamilton said. "Her Majesty has decided to launch a new royal charity program. It will be called the Royal Kindness Initiative, and you two will be the faces of it." Emma almost dropped her cup of tea. "Us? But we're just normal people." Lady Hamilton shook her head. "Not anymore. Your hug has touched millions of people around the world. The video now has over 50 million views. People are calling it a moment of real human connection." One of Lady Hamilton's assistants handed them each a folder. Inside were plans for a charity that would support hospital patients with no family to visit them. The charity would train volunteers to provide human connection and emotional support to lonely patients. "Her Majesty believes this is perfect," Lady Hamilton explained. "Guard Miller, your concern for your mother while on duty, and Miss Chen, your nursing background and natural compassion. Together you represent what this charity will stand for." James looked through the papers. "But I'm just a guard. I don't know anything about running a charity." "You won't run it," Lady Hamilton said. "The palace will handle all the details. You'll simply be the public faces, doing interviews, meeting with." 2 weeks passed quickly. Emma and James were now busy every day with the Royal Kindness Initiative. Today, they sat in a TV studio, waiting to be interviewed on Good Morning Britain, one of the country's biggest morning shows. "Are you nervous?" James asked Emma. He wore a special ceremonial uniform the palace had created for his charity work. It was similar to his guard uniform, but less formal. Emma nodded. "Very. I've never been on TV before." She wore a simple green dress that the palace stylist had chosen for her. Her hair was done professionally, and she felt like a different person. "Just be yourself," James said with a warm smile. "That's why people like us. We're real." The TV host, A friendly woman named Sarah welcomed them onto the set. Bright lights shined on them as cameras rolled. Millions of people across Britain were watching. "So," Sarah said, "tell us how it felt in that moment when you decided to hug a royal guard." Emma took a deep breath. "I work with sick people every day as a nurse. I can tell when someone is hurting inside. When I saw James standing there, I could feel that he needed human connection. I didn't think about rules or tradition. I just followed my heart." Sarah turned to James. "And Guard Miller, you broke centuries of tradition by hugging back. What went through your mind?" James sat up straight. "My mother was in the hospital. I was worried sick but couldn't leave my post. When Emma hugged me, it was like she was saying, 'I see your pain.'" In that moment, being human felt more important than being a perfect guard. The interview went well. By the end, Sarah had tears in her eyes. "The Royal Kindness Initiative launches next week. How can people get involved?" she asked. Emma explained how people could volunteer to visit lonely patients in hospitals. James talked about donation options to help expand the program nationwide. They looked comfortable and natural together on camera. After the interview, they visited a children's hospital in London. This was their first official charity visit. They'd brought small gifts for the children and spent time talking and playing with them. In one room, they met a little girl named Lily who was 7 years old. She had been in the hospital for months with no family visiting her. Her face lit up when Emma and James entered. "Are you the hugger lady and the guard from TV?" Lily asked with wide eyes. Emma smiled. "Yes, that's us." Lily looked serious. "Can I have a hug too?" Emma and James both hugged Lily. The hospital staff took photos that would later appear in newspapers across the country. As they left the hospital, a crowd of people waited outside. They cheered when they saw Emma and James. Some held signs that said, "Kindness matters," and "Hugs heal." Emma was surprised by how many people supported their cause. "I never expected this," she whispered to James as they waved to the crowd. James nodded. "Me neither, but it feels good to make a difference." That evening, they had dinner with James's mother, who was recovering well at the Royal Medical Center. She sat in a wheelchair but looked much stronger. "I saw you both on TV this morning," Mrs. Miller said proudly. "You were wonderful." Emma smiled. "James is a natural. I'm still getting used to cameras." Mrs. Miller looked at them with knowing eyes. "You two make a good team. I haven't seen my son smile this much in years." James blushed. "Mum, please." Emma laughed. She enjoyed James's company more each day. What had started as a chance meeting was growing into a real friendship, maybe even something more. Later, as the car took Emma back to her apartment, her phone rang. It was her boss from the hospital in Ohio. "Emma, when are you coming back?" her boss asked. "Your leave of absence is almost over." Emma hadn't thought about going back. She looked out the window at the London streets that were starting to feel like home. "I'm not sure," she said honestly. "Something important is happening here." What Emma didn't know was that James was having a similar conversation with his commanding officer about his future in the Guard. Both Emma and James were facing big decisions about where their lives were heading. 1 month into the Royal Kindness Initiative, Emma and James stood on a stage in a large London park. Over 5,000 people had come to the official launch event. The charity had already signed up more than 10,000 volunteers across the country. "I can't believe how big this has become," Emma whispered to James as they waited to speak. Lady Hamilton stepped up to the microphone. "Today, we celebrate the power of human connection. A simple hug between two strangers has grown into a movement that will help thousands of lonely people in hospitals across Britain." The crowd cheered as Emma and James were invited to speak. James went first. He was no longer the stiff, silent guard. He spoke with confidence about how important human touch and kindness were, especially when someone was suffering. When it was Emma's turn, she felt nervous looking at the huge crowd. But when she saw James smiling at her from the side of the stage, she found her courage. "I'm just a nurse from Ohio," she began. "I help sick people every day. But sometimes medicine isn't enough. Sometimes people need to know they're not alone. That's what our charity is all about." After the event, Emma and James walked through the park. Street food vendors had set up stalls, and children played games on the grass. It felt like a festival. "Emma," James said suddenly, "I need to tell you something. I've made a decision about my future." Emma's heart beat faster. Was he going back to guard duty? Would their time working together end soon? "I've asked to be permanently assigned to the Royal Kindness Initiative," James said. "I don't want to go back to standing guard outside the palace." Emma felt relief wash over her. "Really? What did they say?" "They agreed," James smiled. "The palace thinks I'm more valuable as the face of this charity than as just another guard." Emma took a deep breath. "I've made a decision too. I called my boss in Ohio yesterday. I've resigned from my nursing job." James stopped walking. "You're not going back to America?" Emma shook her head. "The Royal London Hospital has offered me a position. I can work as a nurse here and still help with the charity." James couldn't hide his happiness. "So you're staying in London?" "Yes," Emma said. "It feels right. The work we're doing here is important." They continued walking, both feeling lighter now that they had shared their decisions. As they passed a food stall, a small boy pointed at them. "Look, Mummy, it's the hugger people," he shouted. Soon, a small crowd gathered around them. People wanted photos and autographs. Emma and James spent time talking with everyone. A young woman told them that she had started visiting her elderly neighbor in the hospital because of their story. "You made me realize how important human connection is," she said with tears in her eyes. Later that evening, James invited Emma to dinner at his small apartment. It was the first time they had spent time together away from charity work or official events. James had cooked a simple meal of pasta and salad. "This is nice," Emma said, looking around his home. There were family photos on the walls and books about history on the shelves. "It's good to see the real James, not just Guard Miller." James smiled as he served the food. "I want you to know the real me." As they ate, they talked about their lives before the famous hug. Emma told stories about growing up in Ohio. James shared memories of his father, who had also been a royal guard. "Do you ever wonder what would have happened if we hadn't met that day at the palace?" Emma asked. James thought for a moment. "I believe some people are meant to meet, maybe not always in such a public way," he laughed. Emma smiled. "I'm glad it happened, even with all the craziness that followed." As the evening ended, James walked Emma to her car. The London streets were quiet under the streetlights. Before she got in the car, James took her hand. "Emma, I want to ask you something," he said, his voice serious. "It's about us." Emma felt her heart skip. What was he going to say? James took a deep breath. "Emma, these past weeks have been amazing. I've never felt this way about anyone before. I know we met in a strange way, but I think I'm falling in love with you." Emma's eyes widened. She had been feeling the same way but was afraid to say it. "James, I feel the same," she whispered. James smiled and leaned forward. Gently, he kissed her. It felt right, like this was always meant to happen. "So," James said, still holding her hand, "will you officially be my girlfriend?" Emma laughed. "Yes." From royal guard and tourist to boyfriend and girlfriend. Who would have thought? The next morning, they arrived separately at the palace for a meeting with Lady Hamilton. They had decided to keep their relationship private for now. "Good news," Lady Hamilton said as they sat down. "Her Majesty is very pleased with the charity's progress. She wants to expand the program." Emma and James exchanged excited looks. "The Queen would like to take the Royal Kindness Initiative international," Lady Hamilton continued, "starting with America." Emma gasped. "America, my home." Lady Hamilton nodded. "Yes, We'd like to launch in Ohio first, since that's your home state, Miss Chen. The Queen thinks your personal connection will help the program succeed there. James looked at Emma. That's wonderful news. There's more, Lady Hamilton said. We'd like both of you to travel to Ohio next month to begin setting things up. You'll meet with hospitals, recruit volunteers, and do media appearances. Emma couldn't believe it. She would be going home, but with James by her side and with the support of the British royal family. As they left the meeting, James whispered, "You'll have to show me around your hometown." Emma smiled. "I can't wait for you to see where I grew up, and for my family to meet you." That afternoon, they'd visited Mrs. Miller, who had recovered enough to move into a small apartment near James's place. She noticed something different about them right away. "You two look happy today," she said with a knowing smile. "Is there something you want to tell me?" James looked at Emma, who nodded. "Mum, Emma and I are together now. As a couple." Mrs. Miller clapped her hands. "I knew it. A mother always knows. I've seen the way you look at each other." Emma blushed. "We're keeping it quiet for now. The charity is the focus. Your secret is safe with me," Mrs. Miller promised. "But I'm very happy for you both." The next few weeks were busy with charity work. They visited more hospitals, appeared on more TV shows, and met with important people who wanted to support their cause, all while secretly enjoying their new relationship. One evening, they took a rare night off and went to a small restaurant in a quiet part of London. They thought no one would recognize them there. They were wrong. "Excuse me," a waiter said as he brought their food. "Aren't you the royal guard and the tourist, the huggers?" Before they could answer, the waiter continued, "I saw you holding hands earlier. Are you two dating now?" Emma and James looked at each other, not sure what to say. "It's okay," the waiter smiled. "Everyone hopes you are. It would make the story even better." That night, as they walked along the Thames River, they talked about their future. "Our story is going to come out sooner or later," James said. "People are already guessing." Emma nodded. "Maybe we should just be honest about it. The charity is doing well. I don't think people will mind." James stopped walking and turned to Emma. The London eye lit up the night sky behind them. "I want everyone to know how I feel about you. I'm not ashamed of it." "Neither am I," Emma said. "So we'll tell Lady Hamilton tomorrow. Get ahead of the story." James agreed. "Yes, but first." He took out his phone and held it up. "Our first selfie as a couple. Just for us." They smiled as James took the picture, the lights of London glowing behind them. From strangers on opposite sides of the world to partners in both work and life, their journey had been unexpected and wonderful. What they didn't know was that their story was about to take another surprising turn. 6 months had passed since the day Emma hugged James at Buckingham Palace. They sat together on a plane flying to Ohio. Emma looked out the window at the clouds below. "Nervous about going home?" James asked, holding her hand. Emma smiled. "A little. I left as a regular nurse on vacation. Now I'm coming back with a British boyfriend, royal connections, and a charity backed by the Queen." The Royal Kindness Initiative had grown beyond their wildest dreams. Over 50,000 volunteers now visited patients in hospitals across Britain. The charity had raised millions of pounds, and Emma and James had become beloved public figures. Their relationship had made headlines when they announced it 3 months ago. People called them the Hug Couple and followed their story like a fairy tale. Young people especially looked up to them as symbols of how one small act of kindness could change lives. The plane landed in Ohio. As they walked into the airport, Emma was shocked to see hundreds of people waiting for them. They held signs that said, "Welcome home, Emma," and "Ohio loves the Hug Couple." Among the crowd, Emma spotted her parents and brother. "Mom, Dad," she called, running to hug them. "I've missed you so much." Her mother wiped away tears. "We're so proud of you, honey." Emma introduced James to her family. Her father shook his hand firmly. "So you're the royal guard who stole our daughter's heart?" James smiled. "Yes, sir, though she stole mine first with that hug." The next day, Emma and James visited Emma's old hospital. The staff had prepared a special welcome. The hospital director announced they were naming a new patient comfort room after Emma and James. "The Chen Miller Room will be a place where patients can receive visitors in a home-like setting," the director explained. "It's inspired by your work with the Royal Kindness Initiative." Over the next week, Emma and James met with Ohio hospitals to set up the American branch of their charity. They appeared on local and national TV. Everywhere they went, people wanted to hear their story and take photos with them. One evening, they had dinner with Emma's family at her childhood home. Her mother had cooked all of Emma's favorite foods. As they ate, James seemed nervous. "Is everything okay?" Emma whispered to him. "Perfect," he said with a small smile. After dinner, James asked if everyone could join them in the living room. He had an announcement to make. Emma was confused. This wasn't in their schedule. As everyone sat down, James turned to Emma. Then, to her complete surprise, he got down on one knee. "Emma Chen," he said, his voice full of emotion. "8 months ago, you hugged a stranger because you saw he was hurting. That simple act of kindness changed my life forever. You taught me that sometimes breaking the rules is the right thing to do." Emma's hands covered her mouth as happy tears filled her eyes. "I can't imagine my life without you now," James continued, pulling a small box from his pocket. "Will you marry me?" The ring inside the box was beautiful but simple, a small diamond surrounded by tiny sapphires, the color of Emma's dress on the day they met. "Yes," Emma cried, throwing her arms around him just like she had that day at the palace. Her family cheered and clapped. Her mother was crying with joy. Later that night, Emma and James sat on the porch swing at her parents' house, looking at the stars. "Did you ever imagine that day at Buckingham Palace would lead to this?" James asked. Emma shook her head. "Never. I just wanted to comfort someone who seemed sad." James kissed her softly. One hug changed everything. The next morning, news of their engagement spread quickly. Messages poured in from around the world, including the special congratulation from the Queen herself. As Emma and James prepared to return to London, they knew their journey was just beginning. What started as a tourist hugging a royal guard had become a worldwide movement of kindness, a successful charity, and a love story that inspired millions. Sometimes, the most life-changing moments come from the simplest acts of human connection. Emma and James would never forget that lesson, and through their work, they would help others remember it too. And it all began with a hug.